So my dad calls me the other night. I'm in my apartment, half buried under a thrift store blanket, scrolling through old car parts on eBay with a mug of instant coffee that tastes like regret. The baseboard heater is humming like it's dying, and I figure, cool, another, hey, the shed door is jammed again kind of call. Nope, not even close. He goes, Eli, you're not coming to Thanksgiving this year. Just drops it like he's canceling a dental appointment. No lead up, no explanation, nothing. I blink. The coffee sloshes in my hand. Wait, what? He sighs. That long, exasperated dad sigh he uses when he's pretending this is all perfectly reasonable. Your sister's been tense lately. And honestly, your mom and I, we just think it's better for everyone if you sit this one out. Sit this one out? I repeat. Standing now, the couch springs groaning like they're offended on my behalf. He tries the dismissive tone. It's not a big deal, Eli. It's just one dinner. We'll catch up another time. I stare at the wall, jaw tightening. My apartment's already colder than it should be. And suddenly it's not just from the heater, okay? But then I guess you won't be needing that $6,000 I've been shelling out for your heating this year either. Silence. I can hear him blink through the phone. Then, don't make this about money. You offered to help us. Oh, hell no. Offered? My laugh is dry and sharp. Dad, I've been paying to keep your house warm for 2 winters. That's not a favor. That's me keeping your pipes from bursting. He mutters something about family dynamics and supporting Kayla during a rough patch. Kayla, the golden one, Miss Queen of the emotional breakdown. You know the type. Always the center of every crisis, but somehow never responsible. 2 years ago, she burned through my parents' savings trying to launch a handmade crystal jewelry empire on Etsy. $22,000 down the drain. All they got was stress and a mountain of unsold amethyst bracelets collecting mold in the garage. I stepped in when their oil bills started bouncing. Winter up here in Vermont isn't cute snowflakes and hot cocoa. It's frostbite and frozen doorknobs. I couldn't watch them freeze, so I paid, quietly, every month, while Kayla flaunted $400 boots on Instagram. But now I'm too much stress. So I ended the call, opened my laptop, and logged into the utility account that's under my name because, of course it is. Click. Cancel service. Done. Their oil deliveries would stop November honest. That gave them exactly 3 weeks to figure out how to stay warm without me. The snow came early this year. Big, chunky flakes like the universe wanted to emphasize how screwed they were. Meanwhile, I kept busy. Double shifts at the warehouse. Soup nights with my buddy Marcus, who runs the local garage. We met for burgers at a diner one night, and I vented between sips of cheap beer. They kicked you out of Thanksgiving after you paid $6,000 for their heat? Yup, I said, popping a fry in my mouth. Not anymore, though. I shut it off. Marcus nearly choked on his burger, laughing. That's cold, man. I grinned. Literally. The first text came a week later from my mom. Eli, did the heat go out? The house is freezing. I ignored it. The next was a voicemail from Dad, barking. Furnace is down. Look into it. Didn't respond. Then Kayla chimed in. I'm freezing. Fix it. That one? I laughed out loud. By mid-November, their messages went from concerned to panicked. It's 55 sig inside. Please, Eli. We're all bundled up in blankets. Kayla's having a meltdown. I was eating stew and listening to jazz in a hoodie, toasty and unbothered. Thanksgiving week rolled around, and the temperature dropped harder than my patience ever did. The weather guy on TV warned of a blizzard. Perfect. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. It's 42 in here. Mom's sick. Call the oil company, please. But I didn't. Thanksgiving Day, I roasted a chicken in my little oven. Didn't bother with turkey. Too many memories. I ate slow, savoring every bite while my phone vibrated nonstop. Then around 5 p.m., someone banged on my door. I opened it a crack. There stood Dad, wrapped in a coat too thin for the storm, nose red, eyes tired. You did this, he said. You turned it off. I just leaned on the frame, arms crossed. You told me I wasn't welcome, I said, so I took that seriously. You can't punish us like this. Your mother, Kayla, I cut him off. I've given enough. 2 years of heating bills. And now I'm the problem? Nah, not anymore. He was shivering, voice brittle. It's 30 out in the house, Eli. We're out of options. I held the door steady, unmoved. Should have thought of that before cutting out the only person keeping the lights on. Have a nice holiday. Click. Door locked. Done. I poured myself a second helping of wine. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, I was warm. The storm didn't let up. By the next morning, the snow had blanketed the world in silence. Thick, untouched powder stretched down my street like a warning. My little apartment was warm, though heater humming, coffee brewing, and my body wrapped in layers that smelled like cinnamon and clean laundry. I didn't move much, just watched the snowfall while my phone blew up in the background. Mom left another message. Eli, it's 28. Inside. We're sleeping in coats. Please, talk to us. I didn't respond. I let the voicemail hang there, like the icicles forming on their gutter. They weren't just cold, they were finally feeling the weight I'd been carrying for 2 years. By Friday, Kayla had started posting cryptic, dramatic updates on Facebook. Stuff like, when your own brother turns his back on family, what even is loyalty? The comments came rolling in. Praying for you. Hope you're okay. One person even had the audacity to say, family first, always, right? Except when I'm the one footing the bill and getting ghosted from Thanksgiving. I screenshotted everything, not for revenge, just to remind myself I wasn't making this up. People love to rewrite history once the heat's off, literally. Marcus called that night, his voice cutting through the static of my old Bluetooth speaker. You good? Cozy, I said, flipping a grilled cheese. Mom and Dad? Not so much. Kayla's been blowing up my cousin's feed, he chuckled. Tried to crash at someone's place. Got turned away. I let that one sit. Felt satisfying, not joyful, not gloating, just settled. Like a scale finally tipping in my favor. On Sunday, I took a walk through town. Wind howling, nose frozen, boots crunching through weeks of packed snow. I passed their house on the way to the corner store Curiosity, I guess. Lights were off, curtains drawn. No smoke from the chimney. I stood across the street for a second, breath fogging in front of me, heart weirdly calm. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even bitter anymore. I was done. Done being the invisible backbone of a family that only saw me when they needed something. I bought a bag of rock salt, a jar of peanut butter, and a 6-pack of cider. When the cashier handed me the receipt, she gave me a knowing look. Cold out there, she said. Not in here, I replied, smiling as I zipped up my coat. That night, I got a call I didn't expect. It was Aunt Renee, my mom's sister. She rarely called me, mostly just commented on birthday posts, and occasionally mailed me cookies during the holidays. Hey honey, she started, voice soft, cautious. Everything okay? I paused. Depends on who you ask, she sighed. I just got off the phone with your mom. She's worried sick. Told me they haven't had heat for days. I stayed quiet. She said you canceled the oil? She said that, huh? I laughed once short and dry. Did she mention the part where they uninvited me to Thanksgiving because Kayla was too stressed? Aunt Renee hesitated. She said, they thought it was best. Best for who? I didn't wait for an answer. I wasn't angry at Aunt Renee. She meant well, but I wasn't going to play the villain in a story I didn't write. They made their choice. Now they get to live with it, I said, then added, you know I've been covering their heating bills for 2 years, she gasped. I had no idea. Exactly, I muttered. We hung up a few minutes later. She said she'd try to talk to my mom. I said I hope she brought a coat. By Monday, it was 24. The text changed. No more guilt tripping, just desperation. Eli, it's bad. We're using candles. Your mother hasn't stopped coughing. Kayla went to a friend's, but we can't leave. Roads are iced. Please, we'll talk. Just help. I sat on the edge of my bed, rereading the last one. There was a time I would have dropped everything to help. I would have hopped in my beat-up Honda, driven over with a space heater and groceries, and fixed it all. But I'd grown out of that version of me. That version hadn't realized he was a tool just useful until inconvenient. That version didn't know what boundaries felt like. Now, I did. On Tuesday, Marcus stopped by. We shared pizza and a few beers. I showed him some of the texts, and he shook his head. They're panicking. Yeah. You think they learned anything? I paused, chewing a slice. Doubt it, but you're not gonna cave. Not a chance. He nodded. Good. The wind howled louder outside, as if agreeing with us. That night, I took a long, hot shower. Let the steam wrap around me. I thought about Kayla's designer boots. The ones she wore in every selfie, captioned with "Work hard, manifest harder." She hadn't worked a full week since her crystal shop flopped. I thought about my dad, who used to call me the dependable one, until I stopped being convenient. And I thought about the last Thanksgiving, the first spent with them. Kayla had shown up an hour late, claimed her Uber was stuck in traffic, and demanded someone reheat the mashed potatoes. I had cooked them, from scratch. She didn't say thank you, just complained they were too garlicky. Now she was sleeping in someone else's guest room while I sipped hot cider, heater humming beside me. Poetic. By Thursday, another storm rolled in. The snow was relentless, blinding flurries that swallowed the sky. I stayed home from work, called out for the first time in 2 years. Not because I was tired, because I didn't owe anyone anything anymore. Mid-afternoon, I heard a knock, not a buzz, an actual knock. I peeked through the peephole. It was Kayla. The first opened the door just enough to see her nose. She looked like a raccoon in a Canada Goose coat. Eyes puffy, hair frizzy, cheeks raw from wind. "Eli," she said, her voice already starting to crack. "We need to talk." I didn't move, just stared. She tried again. "It's freezing in there. Mom's sick. Dad's, he's a mess. And I know you're mad, but please." I leaned against the doorframe. "Did you apologize to me in there? Or am I imagining it?" She blinked. "What? You cut me out of Thanksgiving," I said, "so you could have less stress. Did that work out for you?" She didn't speak. I nodded. "Yeah, that's what I thought." "Eli, I didn't mean I don't care," I said flatly. Her mouth dropped open. That's what got her. Not the cold, not the coughing parents, but the fact that I didn't want to hear her excuses. I started to close the door. "Wait, please, can we come here?" "Just until—" "Absolutely not," I said. "But Mom," she's a grown woman. She made her bed. YALL can huddle in it. I shut the door. Didn't slam it, didn't yell, I just shut it. And locked it, not just the deadbolt, the part of me that used to bend. The part that always forgave too fast. The door clicked shut behind Kayla, and for a moment all I heard was the hum of my space heater and the soft click of my stove warming leftover chili. I leaned against the counter, bowl in hand, spoon clinking softly with each stir. Outside, the wind howled like it had something to say. I didn't rush to the window. I didn't watch her walk away. She wasn't crying, not yet. But I could see in her eyes she wasn't used to people telling her no. And that's the thing with people like her. They think the world exists to bend. That apologies are optional and consequences are negotiable. Not anymore. I ate slowly, savoring every bite. I'd learned how to sit with silence. Let things settle. She didn't knock again. By morning, the messages picked up again. This time, not from them, but from others. "Aunt Renee again. She came to your place? In the storm? Eli, please. Your mom's sick." My cousin Mila texted too. "What's going on? Everyone's freaking out. Kayla said you're freezing them on purpose?" I rolled my eyes. They always skipped the part where I paid for 2 years of oil. Always skipped the part where I got disinvited from Thanksgiving, like I was a random coworker, not their son, not their brother. I ignored the texts. By noon, Facebook was lit up. Kayla had posted a long, dramatic status. One of those passive-aggressive rants that doesn't name names, but makes sure everyone knows who she's talking about. Some people only show love when it's convenient. And when you need them most, poof, gone. Family means nothing to them. But we'll survive, we always do. Comments poured in, sending hugs. "So sorry, Kayla. You don't deserve this. People can be so cruel." I laughed. Actually laughed. The kind that bubbles up sharp and sarcastic. They didn't deserve a reply. But still, I kept reading. People love a victim. And Kayla? She was a professional. I debated commenting. Something like, "I guess forgetting the part where I paid your heating bill for 2 years makes you feel better." But I didn't. I knew better. I was done talking to people who only listened when it benefited them. Instead, I pulled on my coat, headed to the local co-op, and bought firewood, canned tomatoes, and 2 thick fleece blankets. Winter wasn't playing around, and I didn't plan on letting the storm catch me off guard. At the checkout, the woman behind the counter, Darla, I think gave me a smile. Looks like you're settling in for a cold one. Yep, I said, sliding my card. Better to be prepared, she nodded. I saw your sister's post online. Sounded rough. I raised an eyebrow. People really don't waste time around here, huh? She shrugged. Small town, big ears. I didn't offer more, didn't need to explain myself to anyone. When I got home, I stacked the firewood neatly by the door, checked the backup space heater, prepped a pot of soup for the evening. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. That evening, Marcus stopped by again, brought beer and a bag of jalapeno chips. He dropped into the chair across from me, cracking open a bottle. Kayla really went full PR campaign, huh? Oh yeah, I said, scrolling through her latest post. She's even throwing in old photos of us now. We were so close until he changed kind of energy. Marcus laughed. She forget the part where she booted you from Thanksgiving? Selective memory runs in the family. We sat in silence for a moment. The room warm, the windows fogged up from the soup simmering on the stove. Do you feel bad? He asked finally. I looked at him, honest. No, because here's the truth. I had felt bad for a long time. I carried guilt like a second spine, propping everyone else up, even when it hurt me. But that guilt was gone now, burned off like fog in the sun. I'd offered kindness. I'd shown up, again and again, and all I got in return was silence when I needed them, and cold when I finally stopped bending. That's not family. That's a job description with no benefits. A few days passed, more snow, more wind, more of them unraveling. Mom finally messaged again. But this one wasn't a plea. I don't understand how you can be so cruel. We're your family. I rate it 3 times. Cruel? I clicked record and sent back a voice message. Calm, clear. Mom, I've sent you over $6,000 this year. I've paid for oil deliveries. I made the calls. I handled the bills. While Kayla was online bragging about her spa days, and you two smiled like everything was fine. Then you uninvited me from Thanksgiving because she was too tense, and expected me to still keep your house warm. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. No response. Not that day. But the next morning, I woke up to a group chat notification. Family group, Kayla, Mom, Dad, Aunt Renee, Uncle Victor, oh God. I opened it, heart already tightening. We think it's time to move past the drama, Mom started. Let's talk. This isn't worth breaking the family over. Kayla added, you're blowing this out of proportion. Uncle Victor chimed in, come on, Eli. You've made your point. Can't we just move on? I stared at the messages, my phone heavy in my hand. Then I typed, you made your choice. I made mine. If you want warmth, start by being warm people. Then I left the group, blocked the thread. The silence that followed? Bliss. Later that night, Olivia called. My second cousin on Mom's side. We'd always gotten along, mostly because she didn't play the fake nice game. Her voice was crackly from the cold on her end. So, what did you do? Kayla's been losing her mind. Apparently, she slept in a laundry room at a friend's house. Your parents are using the oven to heat the kitchen. I snorted. I turned off the oil account, that's all. You serious? 2 years. $6,000 this year alone. They froze me out. So I returned the favor. There was a pause. Then she said, that's brutal, but fair. Exactly. You know, they're calling everyone trying to borrow money, right? Yeah, I heard. And no one's giving them a cent. They burned their bridges, I said, spooning soup into a bowl. You want me to say something publicly? She offered. Like, clear your name a bit? I thought about it for a second, but I shook my head. No, let them talk. I'm warm. I'm fed. I'm free. That's enough. And I meant it. I used to think closure came from people admitting they were wrong, but sometimes closure is just peace in your own space. A hot meal, a quiet night, and the knowledge that you don't owe anyone anything anymore. That night, as I curled up on my worn couch, wrapped in fleece, with my space heater humming and the snowstorm whipping outside, I realized something. They weren't suffering because of me. They were suffering because they never planned for a world where I stopped saving them. The first snow of December hit like a sledgehammer, thick, wet, and heavy. I could hear it clumping on my windows like it was trying to get inside. I was curled up on the couch, a thick wool blanket over my legs, watching steam curl from a fresh cup of ginger tea when my phone buzzed again. Olivia. Dude, her message said. You might want to see what Kayla posted. I groaned, unlocked my phone, and opened Instagram. There she was. Kayla, wrapped in a blanket like some Victorian orphan, sitting in a dimly lit kitchen, face pale, lips pursed like she hadn't eaten in days. The caption read, "We haven't had heat in weeks. It's 34 inside." I tried to stay strong, but I'm exhausted. Our parents are elderly and getting sick. We're trying our best, but some people just choose cruelty. Please pray for us. Below it, hundreds of likes and sympathetic comments. This is heartbreaking. How could anyone let this happen? You're so strong, Kayla. And then came the worst one. I hope whoever did this lives with the guilt forever. I just sat there, quiet, not even angry, just stunned at how deep the performance ran. I didn't expect people to know every detail, but it hit me, sitting there in my warm apartment, how easy it was to be painted as the villain, especially when you stop setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. The kicker? The video was edited like a sad documentary. Melancholy piano music, slow transitions, a candle flickering in the background, like she was gunning for a sympathy Oscar. I set my phone down and leaned back into the couch, staring at the ceiling. She was trying to take control of the narrative. She wasn't just telling her side. She was rewriting the whole book and pretending I was the one who turned the page. I had two choices. Let it spread, let people believe it, or finally say something. So I did. Not with a video, not with drama, with receipts. I posted a quiet little update, no hashtags, no filters, just a screenshot of the utility payment record from the past 2 years. My name, my bank. Over $11,000 paid out to keep their house warm. No caption, just facts. I stayed quiet, but not anymore. I didn't tag anyone, didn't call names, just let the numbers speak. Within an hour, the comments started rolling in. Wait, what? You paid their heating? This doesn't add up. So why did they say you abandoned them? I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I went for a walk instead. The sidewalks were barely shoveled, the wind biting through my jacket. But I needed air. I needed space to think. I passed the town's little bookstore and saw someone through the window staring at their phone, eyebrows raised. Recognizing the screenshot, I kept walking. At the corner cafe, a couple of people I knew from school years ago were talking by the fire pit. One looked up, recognized me, and gave me a slow nod. It was small, but it meant something. Truth has a way of finding oxygen. And once it does, the lies can't survive for long. By evening, Kayla's video was getting comments she didn't expect. Hey, your brother's post shows he's been paying your bills? Isn't that his name on the utility account? And then someone asked the big one, so why'd you kick him out of Thanksgiving? She deleted the video, didn't even try to defend it. But the damage was already done to her, not me. Olivia called the next morning, practically laughing through the phone. Kayla's flipping out. She tried to say you faked those receipts. People are dragging her in the comments. I didn't laugh. I didn't gloat. I just nodded, still half asleep. She did this to herself, I said. And I meant it. I'd always known she'd implode eventually. I just never expected her to go viral first. A few days later, I went to grab groceries. As I loaded up on essentials, rice, beans, eggs, I heard someone clear their throat behind me. I turned. It was Mrs. Langley, my parents' old neighbor. She looked at me with this mix of curiosity and concern. I saw the whole thing online, she said softly. Is it true? About the bills? I nodded. She shook her head. I always wondered how they were keeping up with the oil prices. Should have known it was you. I didn't say anything, just offered a polite smile. She reached out, touching my arm. You did more than enough, Eli. Don't let them shame you for walking away. That almost cracked me. It's one thing to defend yourself. It's another to be seen without having to explain. Later that night, Mom texted again. You humiliated your sister. No hi, no how are you. Just straight to guilt. I stared at it, the words blurry in the glow of my screen. For a second, I almost typed out a reply, but instead I scrolled back to last year's Thanksgiving photo. Me at the table, big smile, still paying the bills, still showing up. The caption from Mom, So thankful for family, especially Kayla, who keeps our home together. I had cooked that year too. I closed the text, didn't reply, let them sit with it. A couple days later, Marcus and I hit the diner again. It'd become our little ritual: cheap burgers, warm booths, and sarcastic banter to make winter go down smoother. He slid into the booth, nodding toward my phone. Your mom's post got deleted. I raised a brow. Which one? The new one. She tried to say your receipts were out of context. I laughed. Everything's out of context when they get caught. He leaned forward, more serious. So what now? You just gonna cut them off forever? I paused. Thought about it. I'm not sure, I said finally. But I'm not walking back into the fire just because they started missing my warmth. He nodded slowly, chewing his food. Fair. By that weekend, Kayla had gone silent online. No more sad videos. No more cryptic quotes. Just radio silence. Olivia sent me a DM. She's laying low. Mom's side of the family finally saw the full picture. Aunt Diane's furious. Says she sent Kayla money thinking she was abandoned. I didn't respond, just turned off my phone and sat by the window. It was still cold outside, but it didn't bother me anymore. My home was warm. My mind was quiet. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to thank me. I wasn't living for their approval or breaking my back to be seen. I was just being. It was a quiet Sunday when Dad showed up, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, but loaded like the air was holding its breath. The snow had calmed overnight, leaving a fresh white sheet across the street. I was making breakfast, nothing fancy: eggs, toast, and some old jazz crackling through my Bluetooth speaker when I heard the knock. Not the impatient kind, not frantic, just steady, measured. I wiped my hands, stepped to the door, and checked the peephole. There he was, my father, wearing that same old green parka with the busted zipper he never replaced. His hat was askew. Snow clung to the shoulders like it didn't want to let go. I opened the door just a few inches. He didn't speak at first, just looked at me like he was trying to remember something he'd forgotten. Or maybe like he didn't recognize the version of me standing in front of him now. Eli, he said finally. His voice rasped, tired, low, worn out from something deeper than cold. I didn't answer. He shifted his weight, looked down, then back at me. I need to talk to you, he said. Face to face. I leaned on the frame. Let the warmth of my apartment stay just behind me. You've had my number, I said. Plenty of chances to talk. I know, he muttered. I know I've screwed things up. There was a pause. Not because I was giving him time, because I wasn't offering any help. He took a breath. Looked up again, eyes squinting in the cold. Your mom's sick. Really sick. She won't say it, but I know. Her cough's not getting better, and I think we messed up, Eli. That word again. We. A word that tried to spread blame like peanut butter. Smooth it over. Make it digestible. I didn't buy it. You didn't mess up, I said flatly. You made a choice. His shoulders dropped, like he was hoping I'd be easier, softer. Like maybe this time I'd step aside and take the weight again. But I didn't. I stood there in silence, waiting. I shouldn't have told you not to come to Thanksgiving, he admitted. That was Kayla pushing. And me trying to avoid more fights. I raised an eyebrow. So I'm just a fire extinguisher? Only useful when everyone else catches fire? He looked pained but didn't argue, which, honestly, surprised me. I got used to you fixing things, he said. Used to you just being the one who kept everything running. I didn't even realize how much we depended on you until it stopped. I crossed my arms, the cold finally nipping at my fingers. And now that it's inconvenient, you remember me. No, he said. Now that I see it, I regret it. Regret or discomfort? I asked, tilting my head. Because one means you do it differently. The other just means you don't like how it feels. He flinched. Then, for the first time, he didn't deflect. I don't know, he admitted. It was the most honest thing he'd said in years. Look, he said, glancing down at the snow between us. I'm not asking you to pay anything. I'm not here for money. I just wanted to tell you that I know I failed you. I breathed in slowly, steam curling from the coffee mug still warm in my hand. I didn't respond right away. Because even when someone hands you an apology, you still have to decide if you're going to carry it. Finally, I said, "What about Kayla?" His jaw tightened. "She's still spinning. Still pretending she's the victim?" He gave a small nod. "She's couch surfing now. I think reality's finally hitting her." "I doubt it," I muttered. He looked me in the eye. "Eli, I know we don't deserve another chance. But your mom, she really is sick. She asked about you." I felt that one, deep in my chest. Because no matter what she'd done, no matter how she'd prioritized Kayla, over and over again, she was still my mother. But that didn't erase the damage. That didn't reset the scoreboard. "I'm not stopping you from calling," I said. "But I'm not walking back into that house just because the walls got cold." He gave a slow nod. "I understand. I'm not your furnace," I added. "Not anymore." He looked like he wanted to say something else. Maybe explain. Maybe beg. But he didn't. He just stood there for a second longer, then gave a small nod and turned away. The snow crunched beneath his boots as he walked back to his truck. I closed the door, locked it, not out of spite, out of preservation. That night, I sat in the quiet, thought about how long I'd chased crumbs of recognition from people who never intended to give me a seat at the table. Not anymore. I lit a fire in the small iron stove in the corner of my living room, let it warm the space while I listened to the soft crackle and hiss of burning pine. And then, without overthinking it, I picked up my phone and called Mom. She answered on the third ring. Her voice was thin, raspy. "Eli," she said, like she couldn't believe I'd called. "I heard you're not well." She coughed softly. "It's just the cold. I'll be all right." A long silence passed. "Why did you let them push me away?" I asked, quietly, honestly. Another pause. "I didn't want to fight," she said. "It felt easier to lose me than upset her." More silence. She didn't answer, but the silence was loud enough. "You could have told the truth," I said. "To family, online, to Kayla. You could have told everyone I was the one keeping the house warm, but you didn't." "I was ashamed," she whispered. "That stopped me." "Of what?" "That we relied on you so much. That we never said thank you." I exhaled slowly. "You didn't just not say thank you. You cut me out, and then blamed me when I stopped sacrificing myself." She didn't deny it, and honestly, that was the closest thing to closure I was ever going to get. "I'm sorry, Eli," she said. "I really am." I didn't say it back. I just told her to get some rest, drink something warm, and hang in there. Then I hung up. It was a cold kind of peace. Not cozy, not sweet, just honest. After that, I stopped checking Kayla's social media, stopped waiting for messages, stopped keeping tabs on the storm they stirred up. I let the silence settle like dust on a closed door. And in that silence, I felt something new. Not anger, not grief, not even pride, just freedom. The snow started to melt in the second week of January. Not all at once, just little signs. I noticed the drip of water from the corner of my roof. The ice that used to cling to the mailbox disappeared overnight. Sidewalks started showing their cracked old bones again, peeking through slush like they'd held their breath all winter. I could finally walk without slipping every 3 steps. That felt like progress. Inside, everything stayed the same. My heater kept humming. The air was warm. My fridge was full. Quiet days flowed into quiet nights. No surprises, no drama. And for the first time in years, I felt okay with that. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed. Just once. A voicemail. From Kayla. I stared at the screen for a long time before pressing play. "Eli, hey, look, I don't even know where to start. I've been staying with a friend in New Hampshire. It's cold here too, by the way. Cheaper rent though. Anyway, I saw everything online. I saw the receipts. I saw what people were saying. And I guess I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." There was a pause. A shaky breath. "I didn't realize how much you'd been doing for us. I thought you were just being difficult or dramatic. But I get it now, and I don't blame you for shutting us out. I think I'd have done worse if the roles were reversed." Another long pause. "I hope you're okay. I mean that. Maybe we'll talk someday. If you want to." Click. That was it. No tears, no excuses. Just her voice tired, stripped of the usual varnish. I didn't replay it. I just sat back, stared at the ceiling, and let the words settle. There was no part of me that felt triumphant. No desire to throw a party because she finally came around. Honestly, it just made me tired. Because sometimes, when people finally see the truth, all you feel is the weight of how long it took. I didn't call her back. Not because I hated her, but because forgiveness and reunion aren't the same thing. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away and mean it. A few days later, Olivia invited me out to dinner. Not the diner this time, an actual place, with real napkins and low lighting and a wine list I couldn't pronounce. She showed up in boots and a wool coat, shaking snow from her shoulders as she slid into the booth across from me. "You look settled," she said. "I am," I replied. We clinked glasses. She didn't bring up the family drama. Just told me stories about work, about her new roommate who was apparently a walking fire hazard, and about her dog refusing to go outside unless she bribed him with cheese. It was nice. For once, I didn't feel like the guy who blew up Thanksgiving. I was just Eli, eating good food, laughing, living. Later that night, I walked home with my hands in my pockets, breath fogging up like little ghosts drifting into the night. My street was quiet, familiar. I paused at the gate to my apartment, just standing there in the cold, watching the icicles melt and drip in rhythm from the awning above. Something about that moment felt final, like the last page of a book you didn't expect to end the way it did, but somehow it was exactly right. The next day, a letter arrived, not a text, not an email, a real handwritten letter with a crooked stamp and my name scrawled across the front in my mom's shaky handwriting. Inside was a card. Simple. No flowers, no long message. Just, we were wrong. About everything. Thank you for everything you gave, even when we didn't see it. We're sorry. Love, Mom and Dad. I sat there with the letter in my lap for a while. There was something so human about it. No clickbait, no curated post. Just pen and paper and regret. I didn't cry, but I felt acknowledged. And that was enough. I didn't write back. I didn't need to. That was the thing about finally setting boundaries. You learn to let peace speak for you. By February, the town had shaken off most of the frost. The sidewalks were clearer. Kids started playing outside again. You could smell the distant hope of spring if you breathed deep enough. I threw myself into work, volunteered to help unload extra shifts at the warehouse, took on side projects, picked up painting again, started running not to escape, but just to feel the blood move. And slowly, the noise faded, the pity posts, the backhanded guilt trips, the cold knocks on my door, all of it faded. People moved on, but I didn't forget, because forgetting erases the lesson. And the lesson? Sometimes love isn't enough to make people treat you right. Sometimes it takes the cold to show people what your warmth was really worth. I still got the occasional update through Olivia. Mom was doing better, recovered from the worst of her sickness. Dad had picked up part-time work helping a neighbor shovel snow. Kayla? She was quieter now, off social media mostly. Rumor had it she was working retail and slowly paying back the people she borrowed from. Not because she was forced, because no one was bailing her out anymore. And me? I kept living. And if I'm being honest, I lived better. There's a peace that comes from knowing you don't owe anyone a version of yourself that keeps you miserable. A peace that comes from walking away and not turning back, even when the door rattles in the wind behind you. People say revenge is about making them pay. But this wasn't about revenge. This was about freedom. Because sometimes the best thing you can do for people who take you for granted is let them find out what life is like without you. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is stop rescuing the people who left you behind the moment you stop being convenient. So now, when the snow starts to fall and the wind begins to howl and the cold creeps in through the cracks, I sit in my little apartment, pour myself a cup of coffee, pull the blanket over my legs, and let the warmth surround me, a warmth I earned, all by myself. Story 2, spending money on your children is a waste. My father persisted. Your sister is more in need of assistance. I responded, my family comes first. After seeing into my daughter's face, they are now upset that at 39 I chose my children above them. I eventually stopped providing my family with an endless supply of money. My father coldly called my children a waste of money at a family get-together last month, marking the tipping point after more than 10 years of financial abuse. Something inside of me broke in that instant, like a piece of glass breaking. I had made great progress starting a cybersecurity business from scratch, one that today protects the data of major organizations. But there was an unstated cost to that accomplishment. I never agreed to serve as a financial support system for a family that progressively saw me as a limitless source of income. I was surprised by what transpired when I severed their reliance. However, I have no remorse at all. We lived nicely in the middle class while I was growing up. Both of my parents had steady employment. My brother Alex was the troublesome one who constantly appeared to need another chance, while my sister Maria was seen as the golden kid. Throughout our lives, a sentence was said often on graduations, holidays, and birthdays. Family always helps family. When Sentinel Security, my tech firm, began to gather pace 8 years ago, I had fully embraced that attitude. The financial demands started. At first glance, they appeared innocuous. Due to corporate downsizing, my father lost his job and needed help paying the mortgage. "Son, just for a few months," he told me, "you know I'll repay you." Months became half a year, then something permanent, but my mother ignored it as a little setback. Next came the cost of Maria's university education. She performed mediocrely in school, yet she insisted on attending a prestigious private university. A staggering $20,000 annually, her futures being invested in. My mother quarreled, utterly ignoring the fact that I had worked several jobs to pay for my own public university education. After Alex's DUI, there were legal fees, jail, and a business venture involving bespoke bikes that spent $30 before failing. All he needs is someone to have faith in him. As Alex nodded, surely planning his next move, my father persisted. My wife, Amanda, observed all of this with growing anxiety. "Ethan," she said, "they don't even express gratitude anymore." My folks casually discussed charges they believed I would cover after yet another supper. "They behave as though they have a right to your money." I dismissed her concerns for years. I would say their family, as if it made everything okay, the disrespect for my own family, bit by bit. Amanda and our kids, Paul, 5, and Helen, 7, infiltrated like a slow acting poison. Every time we talked about our children's private schooling, Maria rolled her eyes. Throwing money away when mom and dad are struggling must be pleasant. She would make remarks about the same sister whose rent I consistently paid. Alex fully anticipated lavish gifts for himself, but he never recognized my children's birthdays. Despite ignoring Paul's piano concert, my folks insisted that I cancel a crucial business commitment in order to save Alex's bacon again. My parents' house, whose mortgage I had been covertly paying for years, was the last straw on a muggy Sunday night. At the age of 8, Helen had already shown the same passion for technology that had driven my career when she applied to and was accepted into a famous summer scientific program. The programs are priced at $2,500 each. I was more than happy to pay to help her develop. Swirling the fine bourbon I had given him the week before, my father scoffed. $500 for summer camp. Spending money on their children is a waste. In any case, your sister will be a financial burden when she needs a new automobile. There was a tilt to the atmosphere. Helen's little form shrank as she feigned to focus on her dessert, and I watched Amanda's face become pale. Maria, still obsessed with checking out her new manicure. Casually, I added, "Another luxury I had sponsored. My rent is due tomorrow, by the way. Remember to transmit the funds. Oh, and I need to get Coachella tickets this month, so I need an extra $1,000. Something loud and unmistakable broke deep within of me at that precise instant, like a rubber band stretched past its breaking point. The area around me appeared to constrict into a small tunnel at that moment, and I could hear my own pulse thudding and blood rushing in my ears. I slowly got out of my chair and walked up to the wall with the framed family photo hanging on it. The one I had paid the upscale photographer for. From the well-coordinated outfit to the pricey personalized frame, I gently removed it, looked at it for a few long moments, and then placed it on the table, face down. "I'm done." I spoke in a forceful yet composed manner. My mom hardly gave me a look. Maria was upset that I had interrupted her housing emergency. "Ethan, What crap are you saying? I've finished serving as your personal bankroll. All financial assistance has ended as of right now. All of it. For a few seconds, perhaps 3 seconds. Silence fell. Then the room was filled with laughing. Yes, exactly. My dad laughed. Let's talk about Maria's automobile. I intervened, sounding more serious than I actually was. I'm not kidding. The credit cards, the mortgage assistant, and the never-ending loans. Today is the last day. Don't be ridiculous. My mom lost her temper. You are aware that your father's words were not intended. Let's talk about Maria's rent. I looked across at Amanda, who gave me a little but encouraging nod. Then, bewildered but also relieved, I turned to face my kids. 12 years, I said. I have given you over $500,000 over the past 12 years, and you still treat my family and I like we are unimportant. They laughed as I walked away, certain that I wasn't being serious. They were mistaken. I couldn't sleep that night, so I lay awake. I was sitting in my home office at 3 in the morning, surrounded by 12 years worth of bank records, a calculator, and a notepad. My hands trembled as I went over the transaction, meticulously noting each purported loan, gift, and expense that I had paid for. The figures glared back at me after I was done. Unquestionable proof that I had been exploited. $90,000 in mortgage assistance. Mariah's is $110,000. Rent and tuition. Buying a car. $140,000 in bailouts for Alex. Legal matters. Actual bail payments to failed businesses. Parents owe $45,000 in their credit cards. The cost of medical care is $15,000. I paid for vacations, but I never received an invitation. $450,000 includes $20,000 for gifts, $30,000 for last-minute emergencies, and $20 for holidays. Nearly $1 million. Funds that could have been used to pay for my kids' schooling. Money that would have allowed me to grow my company much sooner. Resources that would have freed Amanda from worrying about money so she could concentrate on her art. Rather, it had disappeared into a pit of entitlement and greed. Not as a reminder of what I had lost, but as evidence of what I would never give up again. I printed the financial breakdown and affixed it to the wall of my office. I did something tangible the next morning. To formally record all loan funds, I met with my financial planner. I changed the passwords for all of my financial accounts, stopped all automatic payments associated with my family, and denied them access to my credit cards. Knowing full well that their reaction would be unreasonable, I installed a sophisticated security system at both my home and place of business. I also consulted my company's legal counsel regarding potential harassment. Then I blocked their phone numbers, filtered their emails into an unseen folder, and locked down all social media accounts. That night, as the magnitude of my decision settled over me, Amanda held me close as I trembled. "They're going to despise me," I whispered. "They've been exploiting you for years," she replied softly. "You just couldn't see it because you're a good person." "They're not." By 7 a.m. the next morning, the messages started arriving, sent to my assistant's phone since mine had them blocked. Ha ha ha. Very amusing. "Send my rent money immediately. Maria, stop being childish and call your mother. She's upset. Dad." By noon, the voicemail started coming, forwarded by my increasingly uncomfortable assistant. "You think you're better than us? You'd be nothing without this family." "Nothing." My dad. His voice slurred despite the early morning hour. "My landlord is threatening eviction. Are you really going to let your sister end up homeless?" Maria. Predictably dramatic. "Bro, I get it. You're mad. But I need that investor cash by Friday, or these guys will literally break my legs." Alex apparently caught up in yet another disastrous business game. I ignored every message. Their safety net was gone. 72 hours passed, and the messages escalated from anxious to downright desperate, then shifted into outright pleading. My mother sent a detailed email explaining that my father's blood pressure had skyrocketed and that he had been awake all night, consumed by fear over potentially losing their house. How could I do this to the man who had given up everything to raise me? Alex tried a different strategy, arriving at my workplace wearing a neck brace, claiming he had been assaulted by furious investors and needed $25. to cover medical expenses. When security removed him from the premises, he began yelling that I was abandoning my own brother and leaving him to suffer. Maria approached things in yet another way by reaching out to Amanda directly over the phone. She sobbed about her looming eviction, insisting she would end up homeless because her own brother didn't love her enough to help. When Amanda gently suggested that Maria consider getting a roommate or taking on an extra job, her tears vanished instantly. "You've turned him against us," she spat venomous before slamming the call. Then came their last-ditch effort, a staged family intervention. One evening, I arrived home to find my parents' vehicle parked outside. Inside, Amanda sat tensely on the couch, Maria beside her, Alex pacing near the fireplace, while my parents said stiffly, their expressions solemn as if they were attending a wake, "What's happening?" I inquired, though I already knew exactly what was happening. "We're deeply concerned about you, son," my father said, his tone thick with carefully manufactured worry. "This isn't like you isolating yourself from your family, ignoring our communications. We're concerned something is badly wrong." My mother wiped her eyes with a tissue. "We chatted with Dr. Simmons," she said, referring to our long-term family doctor. "He feels you could be undergoing a nervous breakdown owing to work stress, or potentially even early onset dementia. The anxiety about finances, the rapid behavioral alteration." I nearly chuckled at the foolishness of it. They were literally attempting to trick me into doubting my own sanity, just because I had set a boundary. "Let me get this right," I replied, laying my briefcase down. "You guys assume I'm experiencing a psychiatric crisis just because I stopped providing you money? This isn't about the money." Maria sobbed just on cue. "It's about how much you've changed," Alex interjected. "This is the most selfish thing you've ever done. We've talked about this among ourselves," my father added, bending slightly closer. "We believe that you would be better off talking to a professional and getting some treatment. In the meanwhile, your mother and I can take care of your money to lessen your load." And there it was, the true cause of their alleged worry. They were trying to get into my accounts. After making myself a drink of water in the kitchen, I made my way back to the living room. "You must all depart immediately." "See," Maria said in a dramatic whisper to Amanda. This unreasonable rage. I didn't grow up with this sibling. Amanda arose, obviously exhausted from her patience. "I've had enough. Ethan is all right. He's now seeing how you've all been taking advantage of him, and that's the only difference. Now leave our house." My father lost the look of concern from his face. He snapped, "You don't get to talk to us like that. I'm his wife, and we're his parents." Amanda shot back. "He has been treated like a walking money account while working tirelessly to provide for all of you. I'll call the cops for trespassing if you don't leave now." They were forced to depart. However, my father leaned in close and said, "You'll regret this, son," shortly before leaving. Nobody abandons their family without facing repercussions. Simply put, it was a threat, and they made sure to carry it out. The very following day, the counterattack began. Security had to forcefully remove my father after he barged into my office and caused a commotion in the foyer. Amanda's parents were contacted by my mother, who told them a dramatic tale of my total mental breakdown, self-centeredly refusing to pay for crucial treatment and life-saving drugs. Maria started spreading rumors among our shared friends that I was harsh to my wife and kids and hoarded money while my alleged starving family suffered. Alex took things a step further. He got in touch with my company clients and made nebulous accusations of fraud. He pretended to have an emergency when he arrived to my child's school. He even went so far as to file a fictitious police report alleging that I had threatened him with violence. Their trickery would have worked once. To stop the turmoil, I would have given them everything they wanted. Not now. After 2 weeks, the truth began to bear heavily on them. After being evicted from her posh apartment and having her expensive automobile confiscated, Maria angrily scolded the tow truck driver and insisted that her brother would sue them all. Alex was given a severe warning and a battered lip when his most recent colleagues discovered he did not have the money he had promised. A notice of foreclosure was sent to my parents. I had been out of business for 2 whole months before the mortgage was paid off. They took more drastic actions out of desperation. Authorities were alerted to my father's blatant effort at identity theft when he tried to obtain a loan using my personal information. Every member of my extended family was contacted by my mother, who presented a dramatic story about my supposed substance misuse and careless gaming. Maria returned to live with my parents, portraying herself on social media as a terrible person who had to quit her job to take care of our aging parents. In the meantime, I was at a calm I hadn't felt in years. For once, I slept soundly through the night. The headaches that had been bothering me all the time disappeared. Without the stress of taking care of 5 grown adults, I was able to attend all of Helen's school plays and all of Paul's soccer games without my phone beeping nonstop with fictitious family crises. Our family's finances were booming. Our retirement funds were strengthened. We finally took a long overdue family vacation, our first in years at work, after a significant rise in donations to our kids' education accounts and a break from constant interruptions. We spent months pursuing 3 significant corporate deals, which I was able to obtain. In order to untangle the ingrained guilt and manipulation that had influenced my relationships with my family, I also started therapy. A classic cycle of financial exploitation trapped you. My therapist gave me an explanation. For months after I broke off contact, they felt entitled to your achievement. There was a heart attack on my father. This medical crisis, which was brought on by years of excessive drinking and ongoing stress, was real, unlike the made-up ones of the past. From the hospital, my mother left me a voicemail. She was so emotional that her voice broke. "He's requesting you," she begged. "Please come if you love your father at all. I make arrangements to send flowers." Although I did not visit, I ensured that the medical bills were paid in an inconspicuous manner. My former self would have hurried to his bedside with his money in hand, and even at a time of true need, the new self saw right through the trickery. The fact that I had paid his bills without really getting back in touch with them infuriated my father more than if I had done nothing at all, but he recovered. It demonstrated that I was still able to help, but I was purposefully avoiding giving them an unrestricted financial lifeline. 6 months after I left, the actual encounter happened. No interaction. My family came into the restaurant where I was eating lunch with a potential business partner. The 4 of them. This was no coincidence. They had been following me around, anticipating the right opportunity. They had a distinctive appearance. My dad was lighter. His fitted clothes were swapped out for inexpensive, store-bought apparel. My mother's natural hair color was exposed by the growing out of her expensive salon dye job. Maria was holding a fake imitation of the high-end handbag. The previous Christmas, I gave her a present. Beneath one eye, Alex had a slightly discolored bruise. My customer noticed my abrupt shift in attitude and said, "Is everything okay?" Before I could answer, the table was surrounded by my relatives. "We must speak." In an attempt to sound authoritative, but with a note of desperation in his voice, my father declared, "It's a personal family issue." I stayed sitting and answered, "I am now engaged in a business meeting. This is not the time, nor is it the location." Mom spat. "And was it appropriate to abandon the people who gave up everything for you at that moment?" The eatery became silent. Despite their obvious interest, other customers pretended not to be listening. My client appeared noticeably uncomfortable. With a steady yet firm voice, I let out a breath. "What sacrifices have you made for me specifically? Except that you had to keep taking until you had nothing left. You were reared by us." With an increasing volume, my father let out a roar. "We sacrificed everything for you, and I more than made up for that sacrifice." I answered in a firm voice, but for some reason, that was never sufficient. Maria took a step forward, her eyes sparkling with tears of strategic timing. "They took away my car. I had no choice but to return home. You have destroyed my entire life. Your choices have directly led to your current circumstances, just as mine is the result of my decisions." I responded coolly. Always the most impetuous, Alex slammed a water glass off the table and sent it tumbling to the ground. "Do you truly believe that you are superior to us? You wouldn't exist without this family," he raged. I slowly got up from my chair, staring into his eyes. I answered, "That's where you're wrong. I achieved success despite my family, not because of it. My father's last card was played at that point. The same argument that used to work every time. He said, "Family is family. You have a responsibility to us. Our blood is the same." I looked at each of them, individuals who were related to me by blood but not by ethics. People who talked about love but for so long lived off exploiting others. I had persuaded myself that I owed them anything since we were connected. I could see reality plainly now. My responsibility is to my partner, who supports me without taking advantage of me, and to my kids, whom I am teaching that love has no cost. My real family is that you're only family by birth, nothing more, the rest of you. I apologized to my business partner, put enough money on the table to cover the cost of our incomplete dinner, and left. With threats and obscenities that slid off my back like rainwater on a raincoat, they pursued me into the parking lot. I saw them crowded together in my rearview mirror as I moved away, already fighting about who was at fault, who would pay the tab, and who they may next target. I experienced a sudden and unexpected feeling of pity for the first time. I cut off all financial ties precisely a year ago today. The consequences were exactly what was anticipated. After losing their home and having to move into a small apartment, my parents now need to work to make ends meet. Maria finally found a job that fit her real experience, rather than her perceived value, selling retail goods rather than working in a high-level fashion position. After trying to con an elderly investor, Alex was sentenced to 1 month in prison, a sobering reminder of reality that could be the first actual repercussion he has ever experienced. In my opinion, Sentinel Security was recently valued at $40 million, and we are now opening a second location. At the state level, Helen's science experiment took first prize. Paul is now learning to play the guitar in addition to the piano. Finally, Amanda and I are organizing the second honeymoon that we have always been unable to afford. Only a week ago, my family spent every last penny we had. My mother sent me an email that got past my censors. "Your family is us," she wrote. "Families are forgiving. When are you going to quit punishing us?" I didn't respond. Nothing could be said. This has nothing to do with revenge. It has to do with responsibility. My family members were dealing with the inevitable consequences of their own actions for the first time in their adult life. Sometimes I question whether they will ever realize what they really lost. My financial support was only one aspect of it. Another was the relationship with a son who would have given them everything if they had valued him for who he was, rather than what he could offer, if they had even said thank you to his wife and kids. Family ties are said to be stronger than anything, so there's no need to keep asking for more. But eventually, you have to realize when those same ties are holding you back. It was never only money that made me walk away. It was about saving my marriage, my kids, and myself from a never-ending cycle of abuse. They called me cold-hearted, the reality. I at last mustered the courage to give my heart to people who truly deserved it. Never have I been more for it. Story 3, you were not invited. My mother threw me out. Samantha ought to spend more time there. So I bought a ticket to the Maldives in first class. They are pleading with me to return because their idyllic celebration has now devolved into a horror. I didn't expect a big show or a lavish party, but I also didn't expect to be totally forgotten. My mother started it all with a group mail. "Hello, everyone. The final guest list for Mark's graduation celebration has been finalized. I can't wait to join you all in celebrating." Strangely, my name was absent from the list of names, which included relatives, longtime family friends, and distant family members I hadn't spoken to since I was a youngster. I double-checked, thinking it was an error. No, it wasn't. I initially thought it was an unintentional omission. I'm the sister of Mark. He received a loan for rent from his older sister, who also accompanied him to universities. I've stayed up with him several times as he studied late at night and fixed his thesis because, in his own words, "You're better with grammar than I am." I then gave my mom a call. In her typically upbeat tone, she responded, "How are you doing, my love?" I asked, trying not to lose my cool. The invitation list for Mark's party did not include my name. Was there a mistake? After a moment of stillness, she answered, "Yes, exactly." "Okay, sweetheart." Mark hoped that the majority of the attendees would be younger members of his college group. "We assumed you would comprehend." "You get it?" "Know what?" That I, his own sister, wasn't even taken into consideration when my younger brother had a party. I remained silent, just listened as she went on with her weak logic. She went on, "It's nothing against you. We simply didn't want Samantha, my former best friend, to cause any awkwardness." Only a few months after our friendship ended, Samantha became connected with Mark. She was somehow included in the celebration, even though I hadn't spoken to her since she had deceived me. When I remained silent, Mom went on, "Oh, come on, don't make this a problem. It's just a party." Without saying another word, I hung up. I had shaking hands. This was more than one incident. This included years of work, assistance, and sacrifice, all to be ignored when I was no longer required. I had always been the one to fix problems and mediate disputes, the daughter who responded. Now, though, it was clear that I only mattered when I helped them. Something changed within me. I sat still, gazing at nothing, my thoughts racing with despair, frustration, and incredulity. I was unable to stop mentally reliving everything. Graduating was a significant accomplishment for Mark. When it came time to celebrate, I wasn't simply ignored, I was deliberately shut out of the celebration, which I had helped him through every step of. My own mother had made it clear that Samantha's comfort came before my presence, and that my feelings were unimportant. Samantha had a safe position in the family despite having deceived me. The more I considered it, the more I realized how frequently this had previously occurred. This was not the only time. Birthdays had been celebrated. Family dinner invitations were denied to me. Only at the last minute or not at all did I hear about it. Only when I was required for something did I get calls. I had always concurred. Attendance was constant, been the one they could always count on. But what did I ever get from that? After shutting down my laptop, I got up and poured a glass of wine for myself. I drank deeply and gazed at the fading skyline outside my flat window. I immediately reached for my phone, launched my online browser, and entered a single phrase, the Maldives. It seemed abrupt, maybe even careless. Above all, though, it felt right. I could live without waiting for their approval if they were able to rejoice without me. I wasn't going to sit here and watch them pretend everything was all right as they drank and joked with Samantha. I set up a 5-night getaway at an exclusive hotel on the Big Island with beachfront suites, unrestricted access to the spa, and an infinity pool, the entire bundle. On the plane, I even rewarded myself with a first-class upgrade. I wasn't being frugal with my money for the sake of someone else for once. I was prioritizing myself. I exhaled deeply as soon as the booking confirmations arrived in my email. I was holding without realizing it. I then posted a brief update on Instagram, a captioned photo of my travel information. Unwanted, but certainly not welcomed. A tropical getaway. Chaos in the family. I wasn't expecting much response, yet it came in quick spurts. With a smiling emoji, my cousin Martha responded back, "All right, Queen, do your thing." Brandon, one of my friends, messaged me, "Wait a moment. In fact, they left you out. It's screwed up. You are deserving of much greater." But it was Samantha's remark that really caught me off guard. Yes, that is Samantha. She left a remark on my post. "I'm glad you managed to stay occupied. We had no desire for drama." In any case, I became motionless. At 8, my jaw locked so tightly. She wasn't only unconcerned about my exclusion, it made her very happy, savoring each moment. And it was being permitted by my own family members. I didn't respond. I also didn't block her. Rather, I refilled my wine glass, turned off my alerts, and grinned. Because I knew right then and there that I was choosing what was best for myself. I packed my luggage the next morning with a subdued rebelliousness that I hadn't experienced in years. Every light outfit and bikini I packed in my bag seemed like a declaration of my value and a daring statement. Despite the loudness and bustle of the airport, I moved through it with ease. Music playing, shades over my tired eyes, earbuds in. I got on board early, settling onto my roomy leather seat with cushions. Thank you for the little treat. I shrank under the cloud and looked out at the city as the plane sank. I wasn't going anywhere. Somewhere over the water was where I was selecting myself. I took a quick photo and ordered champagne. Glass in hand, legs outstretched. The caption, Cheers to cutting off and taking off with style. I leaned back and pressed post, feeling something that I hadn't felt in a long time. Be calm. My inbox was bursting at the seams by the time I landed. Once more, Martha. All right, I'm jealous now. A former classmate. You appear to be totally stress-free. Share your secrets with me. Brandon even followed up. In fact, you're winning. Allow them to have their gathering. You're out there having the time of your life. Wondering. She was indeed there when I looked through my unread messages. Mom, you're where? Do you truly intend to miss your brother's graduation? Over this? Not over this. For this reason? I pondered. I didn't respond. A private driver waited outside the terminal, fresh orchid petals on the seat and ice-cold bottled water. The gentle aroma of plumeria blossoms blended with the salty seaside wind. The world itself seemed to be telling me that I had made the proper decision. I was greeted with a cold beverage and a warm towel when I arrived at the resort. I was taken to my suite by a service member, or an unending vista of blue and green waters was presented via tall glass windows. It appeared as though the bed were a fluffy cloud. On the balcony, a hammock bounced softly. After setting my bags aside, I went outdoors and let the warm, tropical air envelop me. I absorbed it all. The independence, the tranquility, the beauty. I then shared a last post. An amazing view of the sea. Their invite list was marked off in the caption, but not with joy. Show it to them. Allow them to dwell with what I had felt ignored, pushed away, and neglected. The sole distinction? I didn't regret anything. The next morning, I woke up to soft sunshine streaming through light-filled curtains and the sound of distant waves breaking into the beach. For a second, I didn't recall anything. Not the betrayal, not the suffering, not the family drama. I was surrounded by a unique type of calm that gives you hope that good things are still happening in the world. My phone then began to vibrate, in quick spurts, once, twice, then 10 times. I initially disregarded it. I assumed it was simply additional reactions to my most recent post. Perhaps Martha sent another meme about my living my best life, or Brandon made a caustic remark. However, as soon as I saw the names flashing on my computer, I set up Mom, Mark, Cousin Aaron, and Stacy. Grandma. Missed phone calls, voicemails. Texts were arriving more quickly than I could read them. I hesitated a while before unlocking my screen and drew my robe tight about myself. Mark sent the initial message. Pick up. It's serious. Next. Mom, you are necessary to us. It's a catastrophe. Catastrophe. My stomach grew constricted, not in terror, but in perplexity. I then opened a mail that Cousin Aaron had sent me. You avoided a complete disaster, Lauren. The celebration was a complete disaster. A little smirk formed as I blinked at the words. To read more, I tapped. It seems that Mark and Samantha got into a heated quarrel in front of everyone at the graduation celebration. Aaron claims that Mark accused her of having an affair with a man in her department. She disputed it vehemently. Things quickly got out of hand, shouting, weeping, beverages, gas spilling, taking out their phones to capture footage. Samantha once gave Mark a slap across the face, snatched his car with her as she stormed off. The worst of it wasn't even that. Stacy tried to intervene, but she stumbled on the terrace and bruised her hip instead. Grandma started crying and said the entire event was jinxed, even though she hadn't wanted to go. As my mother was desperately attempting to recover control, the venue abruptly closed the open bar because of the commotion. I scrolled, astonished yet a little amused. In the big finale, I watched a very inebriated Mark stagger onto the stage, seize the DJ's microphone, and slur his words. Betrayal appears to be the theme for tonight. Let's raise a glass to fictitious family members and friends. As he was being pulled off stage, the video ended. It was the first time in days that I truly laughed. This was the event they vowed would be stressful if I had gone to the one they thought would be too much with me there. Not because I was being mean. Nevertheless, they were able to disintegrate on their own. My phone rang once more a minute later. Martha, I said, smiling. I'll guess. From the ruins you're phoning, she laughed. It was pure anarchy on reality TV, girl. If you knew you hadn't been denied entry, you would have cherished every moment. I grinned. Tell me the summary. She didn't hold anything back. She let me in on every sloppy detail. Taking Mark's keys, Samantha pulled out of the driveway. Mom is in the bathroom crying. Grandma angrily said that the family was doomed by betrayal, while Uncle Nicholas and Stacy blamed each other for not intervening sooner. Martha teased that she could have been quoting you. Fantastic, I said, sipping my morning coffee slowly while enjoying the most amazing vista I had ever seen. Then I paused when Martha said something. By the way, some began to argue that if you had been present, the entire situation would not have happened. I blinked. Hold on, what? Yes, I said, she said. Your mom was informed by Aunt Stacy that you typically calm Mark down when he loses his temper. Your mother then muttered something about how perhaps they ought to have invited you in the first place. I gazed at the display, processing. So, let me clarify this. They excluded me because they believed I would make drama, and now they are blaming my absence for the catastrophe. Martha gave a snort. Isn't that poetic? On my balcony, I reclined on the padded chair, letting my hair become tangled in the warm wind. I ought to have been incensed. Perhaps I ought to have felt victorious, like if I had made a point. Instead, I just felt liberated. When you return, they're planning a family get-together, Tara said. I laughed. Yes, it isn't taking place. Not in my opinion. Her tone was amused as she answered, Are you staying longer? I took a while to respond. As the waves rolled languidly into the sand, my gaze followed. I immediately grabbed my phone, launched a browser, and typed in Maldives resort extension. I was in paradise for 5 more days in a matter of seconds. Satisfied, the first shared a last image of palms swaying under a perfect blue sky with the message, Real peace sometimes means choosing not to come back. Let them deal with the mayhem on their own. Allow them to converse in circles for hours on end, discussing their regrets and muttering about misfortune, errors, and lost opportunities. For my part, I was only beginning. The water was painted in rich shades of pink and gold as the sun had just set. I had a small decorative umbrella and was sprawled out under a covered cabana, drinking a mango-flavored beverage. Totally needless, but absurdly opulent in some way. Soft tropical music floated from someplace nearby, and the air was scented with hibiscus blooms, salt, and air. It was flawless. My phone then vibrated one more. I let out a sigh, already irritated, before even making sure I had blocked Mom, Mark, and a few other family members. Nevertheless, calls and texts from unidentified numbers continued to trickle in. I briefly considered throwing my phone into the sand, but my curiosity won out. It came from my cousin Deborah. Look, I don't blame you. I know you're avoiding everyone. However, you must hear this. Give me a call. Grandma just said something that will blow your mind. After a few moments of staring at the message, I grinned. Deborah avoided getting embroiled in family drama, so if she was getting involved, something really crazy had happened. I made a call. She picked up right away. She sounded as if she were speaking from a hidden place. God, did you really call? I'm grateful. The breathtaking seaside resort encircled me like a dream as I looked around. Yes, I believe I'm in a really good position to hear this. All right. She let out a breath, almost exploding with enthusiasm. Mark sobbed. Samantha stormed off, and the open bar was closed as the party totally fell apart. Your mother got into a heated argument with Stacy. I arched an eyebrow at what you said. I blinked. Me? Yes. Deborah's tone was straightforward. Why? And according to Stacy, if you had been present, the entire catastrophe would not have occurred. You're the only one who can calm Mark down when he begins losing it, she said. I laughed so hard. I almost spat out my drink. So, let me clarify this. I was not present to clean up their disaster, and now the same folks who excluded me are angry, Deborah promised. Oh, it gets even crazier. Tell me everything. Grandma cut them both off, got up, pointed a finger, and made a word-for-word announcement after your mom accused Stacy of embellishing. Pushing your own family away results in this. The universe monitors. A couple passing by turned their heads and grinned at me because I was laughing so loudly. Then Deborah went on. Perhaps if you hadn't treated Lauren like an outsider, she continued. Right now, Mark wouldn't be alone himself. Stunned, I shook my head. Did Grandma really say that? Deborah's laugh could be heard by half the room. She was half expecting you to show up out of nowhere, I believe. I told you so just in case, It would have been iconic. Whirling my glass in my palm, I confessed. In any case, Deborah let out a sigh. After the wedding, your mother made an effort to make amends with the groom's family. And what did the mother of the groom say? What did she say? This seems to be a private issue. She hung up after that. I nearly choked on my drink. No. Oh yes, said Deborah. It has been a complete disaster. All fingers, however, seem to be pointing back at you. They seem to have totally forgotten that they were the ones who initially excluded you. I reclined, staring out at the sea. Deborah, you know what's really funny? What? I really don't give a damn. She started laughing. To be honest, it should be that way. I simply assumed you would be thrilled to learn that Karma appeared sporting high-end shoes. I smiled. That means more to me than you can ever know. There was a pause before Deborah continued, speaking in a softer tone. Lauren, you made the right decision. You never deserved to be treated that way, really. Thanks, I whispered. And I'm not going back to make things better or act like everything is all right. They decided on it. All right, she said. Are you really going to stay longer? 5 more days have already been added. Deborah blew a whistle. That is truly iconic. I laughed as my chest began to warm up. Allow them to have their absurd family conversations and send their passive-aggressive messages. I'll be having a massage by the beach in the interim, guilt-free. She laughed. Have fun. Oh, and tomorrow, send me a picture of your breakfast. You are the one I wish to live through. Deal. I tipped my head back to gaze at the night sky as we hung up. Twinkling stars were just starting to show on the deep navy expanse. It had been years since I felt this light. No pressure, no demands, no guilt tripping that manipulates emotions. I browsed through the blocked contacts and opened my messages one last time. Samantha, Mark, and even Mom. As I took one last photo of the evening, I let out a soft laugh. I typed, and my cocktail held up against the lit ocean. I stayed away because they wanted me gone. The greatest decision I've ever made. After that, I turned off my phone, motioned for the waiter to bring me another drink, and let the sound of the waves take over. I wasn't the one tidying up their mess for the first time in my life. The family didn't use me as a punching bag. I wasn't the forgotten one, waiting for someone to finally care. I was just free. The next morning, I woke to the relaxing sound of waves rolling onto beach and the delicious aroma of plumeria flowing through my open balcony doors. I stretched beneath the soft, airy covers, a quiet contentment remaining inside me. For once, I hadn't spent the night thinking about family conflicts. I hadn't woken up fearing unread texts or felt pressured to address anything. Just peace. I slid to the side, reflexively grabbing for my phone, but hesitated. A part of me wanted to stay entirely off the grid, but curiosity triumphed. The second I opened the screen, alerts rushed in, flowing through like water seeping under a shut door. The initial one, Mom, please pick up the phone and stop being such a baby. This is no longer a joke. Next, Mark, it's unbelievable that you're doing this. My sister is you. It is expected of us to support one another. One more from an unidentified number. Most likely, a Stacy. We must talk to each other. Before it's too late, this family has to be healed. I pressed delete on each one with a groan. Their sudden change in attitude was quite comical. I wasn't even significant enough to receive an invitation a week ago. It seems that I was the glue that kept their collapsing tale together. Then I saw a different message. Deborah, be aware. When you return, your mother is attempting to set up a meeting for family reconciliation. I assumed you would be curious. In fact, I burst out laughing. They genuinely believed I would come back, pretend nothing occurred, sit there, and listen to their pre-written excuses. As if I were the larger one. As if I might repair their catastrophe once more. I typed a brief response. Thank you for the notice, but I will not be there. Deborah's answer was nearly instantaneous. What do you mean by it, please? I typed back with a little smirk on my lips. I'm going to be here longer. They desired for me to be removed from their life. It's okay. I'm taking myself entirely out. I could picture her response, a mixture of astonishment and awe. After a few seconds, another message appeared. Whoa, it's legendary. By the time you return, tell me everything. At any time. I picked up my laptop and went to the resort's booking website, still smiling. After a few clicks, I was able to add a whole week to my vacation. No uncomfortable family get-togethers, no meaningless conversations, no coerced efforts at reconciliation, just freedom, tranquility, and calm before going to the beach. I sent one last message to the family group chat that was muted. Oh, I suddenly matter now? That's intriguing. I apologize, I've been enjoying my reactions too much. I hope everyone has fun cleaning up their own mess. I immediately blocked them all, one more. In order to get to the sea, I threw my phone onto the bed, put on a flowing sundress, and walked barefoot onto the cozy wooden deck. My flesh was stroked by the breeze. The waves provided a stunning reflection of the sun, and for the first time in a long time, I don't feel burdened by tension, resentment, or weight. Only me. Complete, unconcerned, and genuinely free.